Okay, hello. Hello, my friends. I am sitting here in my Rocky sweatshirt with my Rocky mug, and any of my friends will be laughing because when I was trying to decide what do I want to wear, just kind of hanging out, like I want to wear my favorite sweatshirt, which is my Rocky sweatshirt. It's my favorite movie. And I didn't watch it till later in life, which is kind of crazy. My husband Rodney introduced me to it, which I've heard about Rocky before, but I never watched it. Anyway, you're probably wondering what does all this have to do with being successful in Plexus? And I'll tell you that my story, I wanted to share not just a little bit. I was going to say a little bit because that's where I've been trained to go. But I want to share my whole story. I want to share what got me to this point, what took me from being, always having that feeling inside me that there was just something more, that I could just be doing more, be more purposeful, always having that spark alive in me. I would call that the spark of God that just was always with me. And I always just felt like I'm going to do something big. And I want to do something big. And that's even more important. I wanted to. So I'm going to take you back, all the way back. I was born in Mackenzie, BC, Canada. Small town. My dad was a tugboat operator. We owned the logging rights to this little lake out there, Dawson's Creek. Go figure. Not about the movie or the show, the TV show. And when I was around 18 months old, my dad died in a work accident. A gate had fallen on him, and he was brain dead, essentially. And so my mom was widowed, very young. I think she was 24 years old, and was pregnant with my sister. So I started off life just, I believe, feeling a little bit of abandonment and always just wondering who I would be if that had been different. And so I think I've always had that kind of little bit of a chip on my shoulder of who would I be if life had worked out for me from the beginning. So my mom got remarried to an amazing man when I was 4. He was also a very strict and stern man. And I was always chasing love in so many ways, just chasing and trying to I think just gain his approval. I was a loud kid. I loved to sing at the top of my lungs. I was clumsy, and I'm still all of those things today. Okay. I was trying to drink from this cup not a few minutes ago, and I just told my daughter Emmy, I can't drink from this side because I spill it everywhere. So I am still that way. And when you're a loud person with somebody who likes things orderly and controlled, I am like your worst nightmare. I am the opposite of OCD. I am literally your worst nightmare. If you're an OCD control freak, I'm the opposite of those things. And so I think that those triggers brought both of us a lot of growth and good. And it was very difficult and it was very challenging, but he provided a very good life. And what he taught me, his name was Peter, and I called him Dad, and he adopted me and my sister. And what he taught me was commitment, and he taught me community, and he taught me loyalty, that building community with people is something that you'll never regret, something that will always bless you in your life. And those aren't his words. He wouldn't have said bless you in your life, but that's what he was teaching me. He was teaching me how to build community. He took me everywhere, to any adult parties, any political things that he would go to. He was a huge volunteer person, and he would just take me and my siblings. We volunteered for more things than I can even count. And I owe a lot of who I am today because of who he just was, and the example that he set with volunteering and setting up community, and the importance of networking, and the importance of not thinking that you're better than someone else, but that you can always learn from other people around you. And in that way, just so non-judgmental of people. And it just taught me a lot. I was a singer. I discovered singing in 7th grade. They asked somebody to sing the national anthem, "Oh Canada," at our assembly. And I was like, well, I'll do it. And I sang the song. I had sang like in a choir before, but it was all together, so I didn't even really know I could sing. And I remember the music teacher calling my dad and being like, "Did you know she could like really sing?" And so from there on, my dad just took it all the way. I mean, he was driving me 3 to 4 hours every other week for these high prestigious singing lessons, and just really poured a lot of time and value into that. My first photo shoot as a singer was actually from a forensic, a criminal forensic scientist person. So he would like photo murder scenes and stuff. So that's my first. I'm gonna have to dig up pictures of that because it's like a stark white background. It's like so sterile with me and my guitar, which I hardly played. P.S. My dad wanted me to play guitar so bad, but I played piano. So I was a piano player from the age of 5. My dad found it super important to have a musical talent, and so grateful that I have that ability. It's given me opened a lot of doors because I play piano. So that was really a special thing for me. And then just getting out on the road and touring and all of that stuff. I'm going to get into all that, but I wanted to also just share my mom's journey. Because I think it's important, when you're talking to someone and getting to know them, is like, who are your parents? Like, where did you come from? Who are you? And my mom was phenomenal. I feel like she was so ahead of her time with personal growth, in our community anyway. Just so she valued people that didn't talk about other people. She valued that. Like, I remember her strictly saying, what I love about this person is they never talk bad about anybody else. She valued that in people. She valued strong connections. She valued strong women. She was a working mom for most of my life that I recall, and always worked really hard and was always bettering herself. Like, I never remember her just being like, I'm happy where I'm at. She eventually became a branch manager for the Royal Bank and traveled and did management positions, and just she would earn cruises and all this stuff. So she was very successful in her work career. But one thing that she always would tell me is to discipline my disappointment. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated. But when I tell you, like, depression, anxiety, feeling victim, like feeling sorry for yourself, it just was not allowed in my house. And I think about that. In the moment, it felt so cruel. I just remember feeling like, this is not fair. But man, did that come in handy for me when I would really need it later in life. And that skill set of resilience, and that skill set of, oh, well, like, that's life, get over it. That skill set of learning, yes, you can be disappointed, but you need to learn to discipline that. You need to learn to get over it. You need to learn to move on. And my mom was a master at that, in my opinion, that she could really not stay in a bad mood for long, bounce out of it. I never saw her depressed. I never saw her struggle with that stuff. And I think just that example also is huge for me. Again, that would become later in my life. My mom was 100% my best friend, talked every day, and I think I've cried all the tears I could ever cry about my mom, that she's not here with me now, but that she taught me so many things, and she'll just be woven through my story, of course, but she was more realistic and logical and supportive, and would always say things like, you'll feel better if you just tell me. And it was always true. But my dad was the dreamer. My dad was definitely the one who was like, go be a singer. So I had moved to Vancouver, and I toured from about 19 till about 23, 24 years old. I was on the road full time. I played with a band of amazing men who I just still to this day adore. They were fantastic human beings. They are fantastic human beings. Took care of me, looked out for me, because I was, 19 years old on the road, singing in bars and clubs, and, just trying to make it in the music world. And somewhere deep down, I always knew, like, this is not the long-term life that I want. I don't want to be living like this. I don't want fame. I think I thought I did, but I really didn't want the pressure of like, sing now, do it now. Like it feels so personal to me. Music feels so personal and special to me. I just never wanted it to be a job, if that makes sense. And I remember thinking, I feel so different than other musicians, because other musicians, like, they could do it all day long, sun up to sundown. They want to sit there, they want to sing, they want to write, they want to play. Like, it's their obsession. And it just never was my obsession. I loved it and I enjoy it still to this day, very much so, but it was never my obsession to do it. And so I think that I knew that early on, that this, if it didn't take off soon, I probably wouldn't continue with it. And in all fairness, I'm glad that it didn't, because I don't think that I was obsessed enough with it to push it through the next 10 years. It really realistically would have taken me to create some type of success. So I had a couple songs on the radio, but nothing really ever took off. And so I was 23 or 24, and I went to visit a friend in Nashville, and I fell in love. I fell in love with Nashville because of, I think more so, even than it just being music, I felt the inspiration of dreamers. I felt the inspiration of people that lived here that were just dreamers. And when you fall in love with people that are just dreaming big and wide open and no strings attached, they're just it's so contagious. Like, I was just so excited to be around people like that. And of course, I have this little burning inspiration of, oh, what could my life look like if I were to move to Nashville? And I also loved I felt like it was like going back in time coming out here. People were I remember I thought like all these old men were hitting on me, because they'd be like, hey, darling, or hey, honey, sugar. Like, they call you all these things. And I called my dad, and he's like, no. That's just our culture. I was like, oh, okay. And so I just really fell in love with the culture out here. I really loved it so much. I just fell in love with the culture. And so I came back home and I called my parents, and I was like, I'm going to move to Nashville. And if you know my personality, you know that this is who I am. I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to move on it, or I'm going to at least investigate it. And then if it's not possible, I'll move on. But I was never afraid to take a chance. I still feel that way. I'm not afraid to take a risk if I know in my heart that it's the right risk to take. And so I moved to Nashville literally on a wing and a prayer, sold everything I owned, borrowed a few $1,000s from my family, and I moved out here to just see what would happen. And I ended up renting a room in a house when I first moved here. And basically I was like, I got 6 months to figure something out. And I just networked. I met so many amazing people, met so many great friends. And then I met a man named Floyd. And right away I was like, okay, this is probably not going to go anywhere. And 6 weeks later we were engaged. I called my family. They were like, oh my gosh, no. So my mom flew down with my sister. They met him and they're like, okay, fine. So we get married. I think all in all was probably like 6 to 7 months. And so we got married and then started our family. And I homesteaded. We bought a farm. We did all these things. And those were like his passion was to live off the land, to eat clean, to live healthy, all of those things. And I was here for it. So that's what we did. And we had 4 children together. And it was so funny. He was 13 years older than me, and he only ever wanted 1. He was like, 1 is going to be plenty. And we ended up having 4. And he had, so we were farming, and, we had hogs and all these things. And it's hilarious because I'm not an animal person at all. Like, I like animals, but they scare me. Like, most of the time, if I'm on a farm, I'm in fear 24/7, which is crazy because I had a farm. Like, all the homeschoolers are like, can we come to where you're from? I'm like, yes, absolutely. But I'm like actually secretly terrified. I'm terrified of chickens. I'm terrified of the hogs getting out. I'm scared the cow's going to kick. Like, I'm actually just a scared person of animals. I don't know. Maybe in some other life, like, I was attacked by animals. I don't know. But I'm so afraid of animals. And so that was an interesting life for a long time, but I found myself busy. I was just always entrepreneurial, wanting to just make my own money, feel like I was adding value. I think that's always just been a really common theme in my life is I always want to add value. And I heard this documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger one time, and he said that his dad always was telling them, be of value, be of service, be of value. And I feel like that was my parents, both of them actually, their whole philosophy, be of value. Like, what are you doing to add value to your community? What are you doing to add value to your family and add value to the people around you? And so I just have always felt that way. And so I would make bread and butter and cheeses. I got a wine fridge actually to make cheese, like actual legit 9 months to curate Parmesan cheese, and then it'd like be all gone in a day. It was like crazy. I made farmer's cheese, all these things. Anyway, I feel like Forrest Gump. I made cheese curds. I made mozzarella cheese. I made all Parmesan cheese, farmer's cheese, and I sold milk out the back of my Suburban, like a real gangsta. And yeah, so we did lots of stuff like that. We roasted our own coffee, so I sold that, and just always had such a entrepreneurial thing going where I just really wanted to get those things out there. So then I was introduced to Plexus, and I was in my 30s. I think I was like 30 when I first heard of it. And my friend had been sharing about it and talking about it. And her friend, our mutual friend, had come over and was like, you really should look into it. Like, this really aligns with how clean you like to eat and all of those things. And I just honestly felt like a snob. Like I was just like, no, I will never take that. I will never do this. I'm better than that. And I watched this friend of mine absolutely crushing it on social media, just like winning this and winning that and earning money and all this. And it never caught my attention. Like, it just never, like, I don't know what the word would be. Like, it never just like I never computed that, oh wow, that's something you could actually be successful with. And so I watched her literally go diamond, which is the top of our company. I watched her do that. And it was really amazing to see somebody just achieve something so cool. And I watched her start driving a Lexus, and I remember her coming in to our homeschool group and just feeling like, my water was turned off. We couldn't afford water. I had to rinse my hair out in the hose from next door. And I just remember telling her, like, oh my gosh, like, I just can't believe someone can live like that. Like, I don't want anyone living like that. And to see her go from that to earning plenty of money, buying a bigger home, driving a Lexus, it wasn't about the material things, but it was. Like, that was the way I could tell. Like, there's that meme that's like, how to tell if I win a lottery, don't worry, you'll know. It's like, yeah, you're gonna be like, there were material outpours from that. And then I started asking questions. I was like, well, tell me more. And so once I understood what the compensation plan was, like, I remember her taking me over to her house, and we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. And she was just like, I can't even pretend to explain this to you, but just know you make a lot of money just from sharing this. And so I went over and I was like, yeah, that's true. So I took it home to my husband, and he literally was like, if you don't do this, you're crazy. And we had a roofing company at the time that was successful. It was really successful. Had quite a few employees and an on-staff lawyer and all these things. And he was just like, you're crazy if you don't do this. And he had a heart attack a year prior to me starting Plexus. We thought it was a heat stroke. We thought it was heat stroke, and he'd come in from work one day, and that's when he was like, I just don't feel right. And he was like a John Wayne. Like, you know, you're not taking me to the hospital just for no reason. Like, you know, one time I like actually sewed up, like stitched for him, which is crazy. I don't recommend that. John Wayne over there. And then he has to go to the hospital. And that's when I was like, okay, something's not right. So we went, and it never presented as a heart attack. So long story short, we get to the hospital and they are like, we're not really sure what it is. We think it's something to do with his heart. So they put him in. Anyway, they waited too long. They go back in. His heart function is now 20%. We left the hospital at 20% heart function. The crazy part was, they were like, call your family in. He's going to pass away. Like, that's what so I thought he was going to die. So I call my parents. They come in, and I just remember praying, like, God, please, like, I'm just not ready for this. I'm just not ready yet. And I firmly believe God heard my prayer and let him live. And because I wouldn't have been ready then. I would not have been ready yet. And so he rips off, it was like a movie. He like rips off the things, like, I'm going home. And we're all like, we literally thought you were going to die like an hour ago. And now you're like up and moving. And he was almost mad that he was at the hospital, like mad at all of us. Like, it was crazy. So he goes home. Next day, he's working out on the farm. We're just like, what is going on? So we had one more baby and Gage. And gosh, he would have lived for 3 more years after that. And so he came home, or I brought home the compensation plan to him, and he was like, look, you need to do this. And he was like, I remember him saying this. He said, you were born to do something like this. You were born for it. He's like, you'll be so good at this. And so then I was like, okay, he thinks I'll be good at this. You know, he was really pushing me. He gave me some big speech, but like, there's only so many fish in the sea, and you know, you're gonna have to get out there and tell people about it. And so I did. And I went and grabbed my great friend from my Bible study and homeschool group and all those things. And I was like, you should do this with me. And I knew, like, when I first started the products, I was so scared. I just thought, like, I can't do this. I'm nobody. I'm nobody. I don't have anything special going on over here. And I just decided to try. And I got my friend Lisa to try it with me, and to want to do the business with me. I just was like, let's do this together. And I got my friend Latoya to do the business with me as well. She was like, is it legal? Well, Jesus will love me. Are we selling, like, we're not selling drugs, right? And I'm like, nope, we're good. I drove down to her shop in person. I just felt like doing it in person would be so much more powerful. And I think that worked. It worked. So we started building together. And I remember my husband telling me, he was like, they're even better than you. Like, she can talk about the business. I mean, in a nice way. He was like, okay, you know, you're going to need to like up your game here and start talking to people yourself. And so I just started building this business and doing, you know, different sip and sees, and, you know, getting out there and doing events and doing them terrified, literally terrified, because I was putting my name on it, you know, and I felt like if I'm going to put my name on it, it has to mean something. And that was really important to me, even though I was like a nobody and all that stuff. I just felt like if I'm going to put my name on it, it's got to mean something. And I would love to say that I just hit the top of the company within 9 months, but that's not my story. So I started sharing, and in June of 2016, which would have been right around, like, I joined in May and started the business in June. This is right at a year of me going and doing Plexus. Everything changed for me. And I want to go back for just 1 second, because when I first joined that May, I joined May 15th, and I started doing the business on May like 20th. And I was silver. I got 3 people. To do it. And I went to convention. My friend said, I will pay for your hotel room if you can get there. So I did. So me and my husband and my baby Gage went there to convention, and I had a little chat with my girls, and I was like telling everything I was learning. And I heard story after story of how these stay-at-home moms were making crazy money from home, and that like they built it with Plexus. And I remember sitting at a dinner table with a bunch of people, and they went around the room. They were talking. Around the table, and they were saying their ranks. And there was like, they were like gold or senior gold, and you could just tell like there was so much pride behind what they were saying. And they got to my upline, and she was like, I'm diamond. And I'll never forget how everyone just was like, wow. And they just thought she was the coolest thing ever. And so then I was sitting next to her, and they go, are you diamond too? And before I could say anything, Jennifer said, she's almost there. And I was just like in awe. The way they looked at me made me feel like I could accomplish it. Made me feel like they were like, what value? Wow. What a woman of integrity. What a woman of power. And it just, I don't know, it did something for me. And so I left that convention very fired up, very ready to build a business from home that would be incredible. I earned my first $1,000 that following month, and it just kept increasing. And I remember that first $1,000, like you would have thought I won the lottery. I was so excited. I was like, everybody, I'm taking you out for dinner. Let's go. I was so pumped up. It was just like the best feeling in all the world to get to have that. I then hit senior gold very quickly. I was in Canada when I hit senior gold. I deleted my gold announcement off my wall because I didn't want people to think I was making money with Plexus, which is hilarious. And then I also was very scared that people would think that I was just trying to make money from them by sharing Plexus. So I had to work through a lot of that stuff, and I worked through it by basically being like, selling is not convincing. Selling is helping. And I had to really gather my thoughts around that. And once I was there, it was like, yeah, I'm helping people. I don't really care if people do it or not. People are going to do it if they want to, and they're not going to do it. There's nothing I'm going to say is going to change the outcome of what their heart really, truly wants. All I'm doing is saying, if it's a money objection, let's talk about it. There's an opportunity around that. If I'm helping you, not convincing you, then my results are going to be different, as is how my posture is when I'm talking to people. So I cried my eyes out when I hit Ruby and thought, I'll be senior Ruby and Emerald in no time. And that didn't happen. I had to work. I had to grow a new skill set in communication. I had to learn how to duplicate on a different level. And here's where most people give up. They just feel like, I can't do what you're doing. It's too hard. I'll never be able to, I had the thought so many times, like, this is where it ends. This is okay. This is how far I could go. This is it. And somehow, some way, I would dig back in. I would tell myself, what you're doing matters. And I would just remember that feeling of sitting at that table where those women thought that I was almost diamond, and how they looked at me. And I kept that in my heart. I just kept that there. It was like this, I'm doing this because I know that I can climb this mountain. Like, I know I can climb it. I know it's going to be hard, and I don't know where and how it's going to happen, but I just had this sense that I could do it. I could do it. So I remember being Ruby. It was December, and we added 7 people to our team, and I thought, this is it. This is where everything ends and closes for me. And what I learned in that is that, gosh, I think back, it's like, if I would have quit then, Lord have mercy. I literally, I don't know who I would be. And so I learned some really hard lessons in that valley of time of feeling like this is not working. And I think that the hardest part with what I do in my industry is that you're constantly in a high energy of like, come do what I'm doing, come do what I'm doing. And that is hard to do when you feel like everything is kind of falling apart. But what I've learned is literally that's life also, right? Like you have to do the dishes even though you don't want to, unless you want, bugs all over your house. Like there's things you must do. You have to pay your rent or you'll be evicted. You have to pay your mortgage or you're going to go into foreclosure. Like there are things you have to do that don't feel comfortable even when. But for some reason, when it comes down to our dreams or expanding ourselves or bringing in wealth, we cap that with thoughts of like, well, it's just not working, so I'm not going to keep trying. Instead of, no, that's the process. It's not going to work. That's where you learn. That's where you grow. That's where you stretch to take your leadership to the next level, to take your mindset to the next level, to really prove to yourself that you want it. I think that's such a powerful thing right there is how bad do you want it? It's the clarity. I had a friend of mine share a story about her 2 sons with football, and one of her sons, was a really good hometown football player, and he went to this D1 school. He got offers to play it for D2, but he really wanted to go to this one specific school, and it was a D1 school, and he's like, I'm going to go on as a preferred walk-on. Goes on as a walk-on, and his dream was to be a scholarship athlete there. And so his first year, hardly saw the field, got to play a little bit. The second year, they changed his position completely. And he was playing a totally new position. And he stuck it out. And he kept going. And he kept showing up for all these brutal practices, brutal things, knowing he's probably not going to see the field, knowing that there are people that are better than him, more talented than him, older than him, more gifted, all of these things. And what his mom was telling me is she's like, everybody there was the best on their high school team. Everybody there was a great player. Everybody there was used to being the best. And she said what Jack saw was, if I just stick this out, if I just keep going, if I just keep showing up, I'm eventually going to win. It's who can handle the feeling of not winning and still keep going and still keep moving forward and still keep doing and chasing the dream. And I actually think that God provides those opportunities for us where it's even looking for, how bad do you want this? Or do you just want to be the best? And if you want to be the best, there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's your only thing that you're matching up against, then you don't really want it, right? Because to be the best, you have to keep getting better. And I think that so many times we take hard being the sign for us to quit something. Oh, I'm not going to do it anymore because this looks difficult. And so that was one of my very first moment of experiencing that, where I was like, okay, I don't know that I can pull my team out of this spot. What do I do? And I had to dig deep, friends. I had to dig deep and really want it. I had to cry it out. I had to really decide, how bad do I want this? No one could make it easier for me. And I had to pull on what I learned from childhood. You know what? My dad had me out in the driveway learning how to change a tire. And he made me change my tire in the driveway. It took me 6 hours and he didn't help me. Now, people can look at that and be like, that's cruel. That's mean. He should just come change your tire. But can I tell you that when I was on the road in my 1920s, all those things, if I would have had a flat tire on the side of the road, do you know who could change her tire? Do you know who could get home to safety? Do you know who wouldn't have to be picked up by a hitchhiker? Wait, I'm the hitchhiker. You know who wouldn't have to be picked up by a random stranger? Me. Because I would have learned that skill set, because he was allowing me to experience resistance. He was allowing me to experience frustration. He was allowing me to experience hard things and complete it. If he would have come and helped me change that tire, I would have felt relief in the moment, but he would have stolen my victory. It would have been his victory. Oh, here I am to help you. Versus me getting to experience that for myself and knowing that I can change my own tire if I need to. Fast forward in my life, that's going to be extremely beneficial to me. Extremely beneficial to me. So I dug deep and I decided, okay, this is where the rubber, I can either roll over and die. I can roll over and shut my business down. I can roll over and let down the people I told that I was going to take to the top with me. I can let everybody down and I can just roll over and nobody would blame me. Everybody would be like, oh yeah, those things don't work. I could have just given in and been the crabs in the bucket, pulling me back down to reality. This is where you belong. Don't even bother. Why would you even try? This is so hard. All of those things. I could have done it. Thought about it. Almost did that. And then I didn't. And then I didn't. I didn't blame it on God. I didn't say he told me to stop. I didn't, blame it on my husband. I didn't blame it on my kids. I looked at myself and I said, where do I need to grow? I got a John Maxwell book and I didn't just grow myself. I thought, might as well have my team grow with me at the same time. And we started doing a book club, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I started reading. I started listening to things that would grow me. I started realizing my shortcomings. I started realizing where I could grow and learn. And my team started growing again. And I started booming again. And 4 days before convention, which would have been my second convention, I would have been a senior Ruby going to convention, very excited. 4 days before convention, my husband dies. And it was unexpected, but kind of expected. We knew that he'd had a heart condition because he'd only been left with 20% heart function from before, and they'd found an aneurysm on his December ultrasound. And so he dies and he just doesn't come home. He had pulled over, and for that I'll always be grateful. My aunt said it best. She said it was an honorable thing to do because it wasn't in front of the kids, it wasn't in front of me, and he passed away in his car. And so it was a extremely difficult time. There's no words in the human language to explain what that was like. And looking back on it now, it'll be 10 years this June. Looking back on it now, what I found to be the most difficult part of that whole thing was telling my kids and trying to explain to them in a way that felt comforting, but also felt like truthful, and also felt so that they could understand it on a deeper level. I think I was just not sure what that would look like, and also struggling in that same moment with a feeling of just wanting to keep them very close. That was very hard. So at the time they were 6, 5, 3, and 1. Obviously the 1-year-old did not understand at all. And then having to just re-engage with the world just felt so heavy. It just, people would see you and they'd be like, oh, where's like it and it's one of those things when you think that everybody knows and nobody really knows, so they just would talk about it, well, where's your dad, and I would have to just say it, and learning to say it and feeling comfortable learning how to tell such a huge personal thing to people in public was so hard. And making decisions that you don't think you'd ever have to make, like, do I let the kids see him Do I let the kids come to the funeral? Do I, and everybody has an opinion about stuff like that. That's what you find out. And um, I'm grateful for every decision I made. I don't regret decisions I made during that time. I made the very best decisions I could based on what I had at the time. And I did let the kids see him, and it was really good because they had all kinds of crazy thoughts in their mind of what he would look like or anything. So I think it was helpful for them to see him. And then they were at the funeral, and I sang at the funeral, and they got to speak at the funeral if they wanted. And it was just a horrible time in my life. It was a horrible time. And I mean, there's so many faucets to that story I could go down. But just that it was a really hard season of life to walk through. There's just no other way to put that. So I was burying my husband. Actually, he was cremated, so we were doing that. And my mom had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a while before he passed away, but she just started chemo. It was her first week of chemo. So she had to get her chemo and then fly on a plane to be with her daughter, who just had been widowed. And I think that tears me up more too, knowing that she was so sick and having to just know in her heart that she wasn't going to be with me long. As a mother, I can't imagine how that would have felt. So he died on the 10th, and our oldest son's birthday was 9 days later after that. And it was also Father's Day. So his first birthday without his dad also landed on Father's Day. It was horrible. And so we had a huge party for him because that's how I dealt with it. I was like, let's just have fun. Let's have a good time. Let's just try to keep the good times flowing. We're going to stay in a positive headspace. Like, let's do it. And so I had a huge party for him. And I remember just like feeling overstimulated. And so my mom was like, let's just sneak out and let's go to Starbucks. And so we did. And her and I sat there, and I'll treasure that conversation forever. But she just told me, like, this is going to be hard. And I know you can do it. And I know that you are not just going to make it, but you're going to thrive. And your kids are going to thrive. And you're going to experience things in a whole new world. And that your next chapter can be even better than what you've experienced so far in life. And she was just like, you're going to have to grieve, but you're also going to have to just discipline it a little bit. Discipline that disappointment and make sure that you're focused on where you want to go, not just on what's happening, not just on what's happened behind you and all those things. And that was the best advice on the planet, because most people are telling you, lean into it, stay in your dark room, grieve for a year. My life would have fallen apart. I would have ended up on welfare. I would have married 100% the wrong person out of necessity instead of getting to choose somebody that I actually loved. Because when you're in survival mode, you have to make quick decisions, and decisions that are based on, can this person help me survive? And so I went to Home Depot. I loaded the kids in the car, and I went down and I bought a piece of tub towel. I couldn't even afford a whiteboard because I was too scared. I did not mention this yet even, but we had no life insurance, zero. And we had shut our company down. We just shut it down. And I had no money coming in. Like I had my Plexus money coming in and that was it. And I had to cover, our mortgage. We had a full functioning farm that costs a lot of money to run. And I had no skill sets. Like I was a musician. I didn't have any type of skill set. So I was like, I'm going all in to earning six figures with Plexus. And so I went and I got this tub tile and I just nailed it to the wall and I just wrote down everything that I felt was just imperative to building who I was going to be. That was my focus. Like I can re-identify myself. And I believe that I've done this multiple times now since that I've learned that you can do this and you can do it without trauma happening to you and without being, hurt. I just wrote down everything that I wanted to be. Like I wanted to walk through that with class and become powerful. I wanted to feel some sense of control in my life in a totally uncontrollable season of life. And I just wrote all this stuff down. So every morning I would get up and I'd see all these things like, I am victorious. I can do great things. I am a diamond. I am a leader of leaders. I am a woman of faith. I am a praying mom. I am, my children raise and call me blessed. Like all these different things I wrote on there because my faith is super important to me. And especially during that time in my life, I was very drawn in. And God was very close with me. And I felt that. And so I just committed to doing this. I drew circles on my board of just who are going to fill these spots. And I would just think about these people. And I'd visualize these people and I'd bless these people. And I just knew, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just knew it was going to happen. That this was going to happen. And I hit Emerald 4 months later. I hit Emerald. My mom was one of my last Emerald orders. She waited to order because she wanted to be the order that made me go Emerald. And, she's so sick and she orders and all these things. And I then went home for Christmas. And we spent our last Christmas together with my mom and dad. I flew the 4 kids by myself, which was like Chinese torture. And I did it. And I still worked my business. And I think back on that and I think about like what's hard in my life now. And I think nothing was harder. Nothing was harder than being a full-time single mom. Flying back and forth to Canada to be with my dying mother. And building a business that was going to fuel me for the rest of my life in business and who I was going to be, all happening coincidentally. It was the craziest experience ever. And that's why, when people say to me, how did you build this business losing your husband and your parents and all that stuff? And I'm like, and how are you not? Like you have it way easier now. I was like, why not? Because I think we're so afraid of resistance. We're so afraid of hard. We're so afraid of change. And it just, when I start talking about it, I get so passionate about it because it's in those moments where you think that you can't, that if you keep giving in and you keep falling in line with it's so hard, like life is always going to feel hard. Like, what are you going to do when something really hard happens? It's gaining that resistance muscle and learning that doing hard things is actually really powerful for you. So I'd fly home. We'd spend Christmas together. My mom was very, very sick. And I had 4 very little kids. And I was going through tremendous grief. And it was the worst Christmas of all time. And I remember just being like, I can't believe that I'm even working. I can't even believe I'm doing all this stuff. But I would just do it. It was like I just would share from that place. I would talk from that place. I remember having sip and sees out at my mom's house, and I just did. I just kept doing it. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. Like, okay, today is a new day. What can I do today? Today is a new day. What can I do today? And it really kind of just went on from there. So my mom passed away in January, right after Christmas. um, I flew home, and she, right before I left, she was like, I don't want you to go. And I was like, I know, but we had this moment, and we both knew, like, I couldn't be there. That I think that was important for me and for her, that I not be there. I think my mom and I had a special, unique relationship in the fact that I was alive when she was widowed. Even though I was young, I was a tie to that for her. And that, then she was a single mom for a few years. And I was kind of her person during that time. And I think that, we talked a lot about spiritual stuff together. And I would pray with her a lot. And we just had this thing. And I think that she knew I couldn't watch it. Like, I literally don't think I could have managed that. So I flew home, and my sister called me literally right when I landed, and we were on the last hours. And so I got to be on FaceTime, and I sang to her, and all that stuff. So still kind of there, but not having to actually be there. And then she passed away, and we had an event called Super Saturday that I was actually going to sing at. And I showed up, and I sang at this Super Saturday, and I rewrote the song Hello by Adele, because it was Nashville. It was in Nashville, and I wanted everyone to feel like, you're in Music City, this is something cool. And I sang. I thought, this is what she'd want me to do. I was flying out like the next day or two to go back home, and I sang this song, and I hosted this event, and I hosted it with all my heart and all my strength and all my, okay, we're here, we're doing this, and we're building our businesses, and we're building our teams, and I'm part of this movement, and I'm part of something bigger than myself. And I'm doing this for my kids, and I'm doing this to make my mom proud, and I'm doing this for all the things, and everything in me thought, what will people think? And I just let that feeling go. And I thought, I don't really care what people think. I am doing this to answer the call on my heart, answer the call in my life. And I just felt like if I start letting things stop me now, it's not going to help anything. And so I did, and that would end up being one of the greatest decisions of my life, is to sing that song at that Super Saturday on that day, the very next day after my mom passed away. So I'm widowed and motherless in 6 months, and losing two of the most important people in my life. And I'm building this massive business from home, and I have 4 kids who I'm legit single parenting. And I get a call in May. So my mom had passed away 4 months before. I get a call in May. Well, let me back up for just a second. I wrote a song called Grateful Daughter, just out of the rawness of everything that I was experiencing and feeling. And I had written this song, and I recorded it, which I'd been in a studio in forever and ever and ever. Like forever, like years and years. And I was like, I'm recording this song. And I was scared. I remember going to the studio with Chet and being like, he plays with 3 Doors Down. I remember being like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I was like, let me just do a cover song. He's like, no, we're going to do this song. And we're going to do exactly how you wrote it. And I remember sitting in my car and just crying, listening to it, because I was like, this is so... I never loved anything I recorded, but I loved this song. And so it was crazy. I recorded this song in probably February, maybe even March, maybe even April. And I got a call like in May from the president of Plexus saying, he'd heard my story. He just was like so touched by it. Would I please come and share my story? And he goes, and I heard you're an amazing singer. I got to hear you sing Hello by Adele, and I love it. Would you sing a song? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. no clue what song I'm going to sing. He never asked me. He didn't care. He was like, you just do you, boo. And he didn't say it like that, but that was the vibe I got. And so my friend Jennifer was like, you've got to sing Grateful Daughter. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot go up there and sing an original song. Are you crazy? And this is a highlight for me in my lifetime, is that I got up on that stage and I shared my story. It's on YouTube. But I just shared like a real short synopsis of how, you know, I'd lost my husband and then I lost my mom, and my dad was in a home for early onset Alzheimer's. So when my mom passed away, he went into a home, and I just felt so orphaned and abandoned by everybody. And, you know, but here I was building this big business and having success with it. And I got to sing Grateful Daughter, and there was probably 15,000 people. It was at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. It was like a total like stadium vibe feeling, like just the way it was set up. And I just sang this song, scared out of my mind, nervous. And I got to have this such a cool like artist moment, a singer moment. And also just it was like I got this reprieve from all the grief in that moment. It was just like, this is the dream. Like, you're living the dream. And even though everything hard is happening, this is the vehicle that takes you out to provide bigger purpose. And I remember walking off the stage, and my friend Lisa and I were like, oh my gosh, like we were bombarded by people. Like, it was like, I might as well have been Michael Jackson. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. I can't even, there's no words to describe what that felt like. Sometimes it felt alarming and scary because there were so many people. Like, I couldn't get anywhere. I couldn't walk anywhere. Literally. And it was just so precious to me because it was all people just, you know, supporting me and, you know, telling me their stories. And, it was a wild time, and I'll never forget that. Like, it was just such a wild experience. It was like, talk about the highest of highs after the lowest of lows. It was such a crazy experience, and you're just riding this wave. Like, I remember just being like, I'm riding the wave, baby. Like, I'm just going up when I can go up, and I'm taking every up I can get at this point, and I'm riding the low waves and knowing it's going to come back up. I just know it's going to come back up. And I thank God for that lesson. I thank God so much for that lesson of understanding that when you're in the lowest of lows and the valley feels harder than it's ever felt, and it feels dark and it feels scary and it feels unattainable and it feels like nobody gets it, and it feels like I'm in the trenches alone and it feels heavy, is I've gone through it enough times now at a pretty young age to know that the mountaintop experience is coming if I tune my eye for it. If I can become resilient and not give in to this feeling and stay here forever. But if I can call on that resilience and say, what can I do today to make today better? What can I look for today to make today better? What activity can I take and do that will move me forward? And learning that lesson has changed my life. It's completely changed my life. Here's what I know to be true. I will never fear the future. Never. Because I know that I have the resilience skills and the survival skills. I had to auction off our farm, and I auctioned it off and made nothing. Like, I did not make hardly anything on that house. And we were homeless. Like, I didn't have a house to take my kids to. My parents were dying. You know, I was bouncing around. My friend Lisa, I stayed at her parents' house. I rented their house from them. And I had to rely on my community of support to get me through until I was able to buy my first house. I bought my first house by myself in April. And it was right before I sang at convention. It was that April. And I bought this, you know, house in a subdivision. And I just was so proud of myself that I had gotten myself to a paycheck that could afford to buy a house in a subdivision, a big house where the kids had their own rooms and all these things. And to just know that I was actually providing for them felt very cool to me. So I just, I bought this house, I was doing all these things, and then my dad passes away in July, and I am just all up in my feelings. And at that time I was Sapphire, which is the second, or the next one away from Diamond, one away from the top. And I remember just feeling so over people dying. Like, I was just over it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I was just like, I'm so over this. I don't want tragedy knocking on my door anymore. And I just thought, like, who's gonna even want to marry me or be friends with me or anything when all this crazy stuff keeps happening. And I just decided at that time that, me and the kids were going to go on an adventure. I was going to rent out my house and go back home to Canada for a while. And my aunt, who I was extremely close to, my Auntie Lynn, she had been diagnosed with cancer. And so I was like, I need to go back home. I need to be with my family in Canada. And so I did. I went home. I rented a house. We put the kids in school out there. I put the kids in school out there. And I got to live close proximity to my sister. And then my brothers would come over to the island and see me and help out with the kids and all this stuff. And so the island was a very healing place for me. I didn't have a lot of friends there. It was a new town for me, but then, my sister was there, but also it was healing for me to be closer to my sister. It was healing for me to be closer to my brothers. It was healing for me to be close to the ocean and to just deal with what I had going on. And the kids learned to ski, and the kids learned to, they had this cool Canadian experience. So that was really fun in that place, but also most definitely hands down the hardest year of my life for sure. And I learned a lot there too. I learned a lot. I got business coaching, and for the first time, and it would wreck me, and then it would accelerate me, and then it would wreck me, and it would accelerate me. And it was where he really held me accountable to just like, you're not a victim to your circumstances. Like, let's go. And that really moved me. It's where I started doing Sunday night singing. Every Sunday I would do a live singing on my Facebook. I did it for about 5 years. And I would just sing every Sunday night, just songs on my heart, whatever. And I just was invested in my business and getting better and being stronger. And so, and then about 9 months after living in Canada, I woke up like in the night, and I just felt called to go back to Nashville. And I remember telling my sister-in-law, I was like, I'm gonna go back to Nashville. She's like, I kind of knew that. I was like, you did? She's like, yeah, I kind of knew. Like, that's just where you belong. And so then I had to tell my sister, and that was hard because, I want to be close to my family, but I also just felt like Nashville was home. So I moved back to Nashville, and I started like hanging out with all my Plexus friends, and I had a Plexus friend come to me, and she said, I have somebody you should meet. He's building my house, and he has been widowed. And I was like, okay. I had given up on like even the thought that I would get married, because I just was like, I'm the most awkward dater on the planet. Like, I'm just not good at it. I don't want to do it. It was stressful for me. I just felt hopeless in that area. But my kids had been writing lists, of who they wanted in a dad and what they wanted, and they wanted to be fathered. They missed that, and they were little, and they wanted that. And so we would talk a lot about it. We would pray a lot about it together. It was never something that I kept secret from them or felt like that they, oh, we're never going to talk about it. Like, I was very vocal about the fact that I wanted to remarry at some point. And, who would we want this person to be? Like, I made it an exciting thing versus oh my gosh, we're going to have to do this again. Hope we pick the right person. Like, I didn't do it like that. I was just like, I'm going to get married again. And my mother on her deathbed said, marry a good Christian man. He's going to be awesome, and have a bridge baby. Because my mom had a bridge baby. His name's Brock, my little brother, who's just like the heartbeat of my life. I love that boy so much. And she told me, she's like, it really does bridge the gap. And so I just always had that back in my mind. I'm like, okay, I'll probably have one more baby. So I kind of felt clock was ticking. I'm like 36 years old, 37, somewhere in there. And I'm like, well, I guess this is it. I'm just going to build my own house. I'm going to be a true, like, woman power here and build my own house. Then I had another friend who had a friend who was like, send this video to Alita. And it was super creepy, hilarious. It was like she was filming and like walking by quickly by this guy who was also building her house and was widowed with kids, and they had homeschooled. And so I have like these two people kind of telling me, well, one of my really good friends and her friends, they had moved since I'd been gone and moved into this new house about 5 miles from my house. Not even, maybe 3 miles. And I was like, I'm going to build a house. And he was like, the only person I trust to build your house is my neighbor. You have to talk to him. So I start talking to this builder, not knowing it's the same builder as all the three people are telling me. And we start chatting. Okay, I find out, he's been widowed as well. So we're talking a lot about that, of course, and just like the things that he was going through with that. And he was like, 100%, I'll take a look at this property that you're looking at building on, and I'll look at, building you a house. And so I was like, great. So he's like, well, let's meet for lunch and go over like, what you're thinking and stuff like that. So we go out, and the whole time, okay, listen, this is actually so funny. The whole time I cry, pretty much, like from start to finish. I do everything they tell you not to do on a date, which it wasn't a date at the time. And that's, in my defense, that's how I was thinking of it. I think he thought it was a date, but I cried from start to finish about my late husband and about his late wife. I just cried the whole time. And I remember just being like, this is so sad. This is so horrible. I'm so sorry. It's so hard. Like, it was ridiculous, honestly. I'm like, who was I? That was like not cool at all. I then fist bump him at the end, and I say, friends forever. And I go back to my car, and someone had parked so close to the driver's side that I actually had to get in through the passenger side and climb over, honking my horn, trying to get in. And he's like a Southern gentleman, like wanted to open my doors. And I was just like, you can't do that for me. You can't. I'm sorry. So just so hilarious and embarrassing. So then we start talking some more about like building. We start chatting more, all these things. And we joke now because he asked me out on a date like 2 months from the day. So he was like, you want to go to a movie in like December? And it was like September. So we were laughing about that. But to condense that story, I remember thinking, he had shared with me, he's like, you are the only other woman I've ever been alone with, because my wife, they went to school together and all that stuff, his late wife. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. And then we just start talking and in depth, and we're laughing and we're talking all these things. And so I can feel that feeling of like, something's going to happen. And we went for a drive. We decided just to go for a drive because that was literally my both of us talked about how driving was a huge part of our healing process. Like it was just long drives. I would get a Dunkin' Donuts coffee and drive, put on pink lipstick, put on music and drive. And I would cry and I would heal and I would laugh and I would cry and whatever. And I'd listen to motivational things. And so we had that in common. And so we were driving around just talking. And I just remember he picked me up and it was raining out. And he got out. I don't know why that makes me emotional. With an umbrella, and he walked me over to his truck. And I was like, you feel like home. I was like, maybe it's because you look like a Canadian. He had a big beard. He's like a big dude. And I'm like, but you feel like home to me. And we just drove and we talked, and it was everything. It was everything. And I knew pretty much then, I was like, I'm going to marry this guy. And so there's a lot in that, like that he had a dream, and I was wearing the feathers, and it was like, it was the whole thing. But we ended up getting married within 3 weeks, really. But we had been talking for longer, but we got married very quickly. He wrote me a letter and attached 5 Dove Promise chocolates, one for each of the kids, one for me, and wrote me a letter of intention to marry me. And it was just precious. I mean, absolutely precious. And so we got married, and it's hilarious because I feel like this part of the story is just as long as the first part. So we got married. He had 3 children. I had 4. And his 3 babies just literally feel like my 3 babies now. I can't even. I'm so thankful I got the privilege, holy privilege, of being their mom, Earthside, for now. And I'm grateful for that, because I cannot imagine my life without them. They are they're just part of me now, you know, and it's been an extremely special thing that I've gotten to experience with them. And where was I at? So we got married, and I did tell him, I was like, kind of a deal breaker for me is to have one more baby. I said, we can't have 7 kids together and not have a baby. And I told him about my mom saying, you know, we needed to have a bridge baby, or that she recommended it. And so he was like, I agree. And so he had a reversal, and the reversal worked, and we had a baby, and it was Rodney's idea to call him Bridge. So we did. His name is Bridge. And a cool part too of my story is that my last name when I was married to Floyd was Allen. And I was so worried about when I got married that my kid's last name would not be the same as mine anymore. And my husband's late brother, he is late too now, he's passed away too, but Kevin came to us and said, hey, I really feel like the kids were so young, and I feel like it would be more important for them to be familyed than just have a last name. So he thought we should offer adoption to the kids. And so we did, and they wanted to. So we adopted each other's kids, and we familyed them all together. Well, my last name was Allen at the time, as were my 4 kids. Rodney's middle name is Allen, spelled the exact same way. And so my boys were able to move that name into the middle name, which is their new dad's middle name, but then also their late dad's last name. So it's a really cool combo that I really always love, having that knowledge that's like, it's just there, right? Because even though Floyd and Jen are no longer with us, their fingerprints are all over our family, right? They help raise these kids for a certain part of time. Their DNA is in them. They're part of me and Rodney's life and have shaped who we are. And so they're important. They're really important, and they're honored in our life. And we don't dwell on the fact that they're gone, because there's nothing we can do about that. And so we always have had that focus of, you know, looking at it in fondness and in honor and in sweetness, you know, and not in so much of a longing sense, and moving forward. And so I feel like we've done a really good job with that, I have to say. I feel like we've done a really good job of balancing that and navigating that as best we could. And and just, yeah, I can't remember where I'm at right now. So we got married and adopted everyone, each other's kids. And then I hit Diamond in 2020. And that was so fun. Or was it 2019? I can't remember. Anyway, it was so fun. Like, it was just like my points hit and it was like, I'm Diamond. And our team just absolutely exploded. It was so crazy. All the things that I wondered if it would ever happen finally happened. But it happened because of compound effect of just doing the damn thing, even when it was hard, even when it was tough. And, you know, getting remarried and blending a family and all that stuff is also, you know, time consuming. And so to be able to continue to work through that and then have all this residual income and be able to start a new life in a new town and start a new life with a new big home that we custom built for our family. I mean, that's just priceless. It's all that work. I mean, I could literally just go back and high five Alita from 10 years ago and say, girl, you did it. Like, what you set out to do, you did. And I hope that you just keep getting better. I hope that you just keep pushing forward. I hope that you keep in mind the people who are coming behind you, that you don't slow down, that you don't stop, that you don't quit, that you don't just start being selfish and only focusing on you, but that you remember where you came from, and you remember that someone helped you, and that you remember that there's so much more to life than just living the monotony of it, that there's so much that you can be doing and so much purposeful work that you can be doing. And that I think that, you know, living a life of like living on a beach or something where you don't work ever is boring. Like, that's boring. You're going to get bored of that. We're created to be of value and to be of purpose. And I know that's not like, you know, in the agenda for today's world, but it's like, I'm here to tell you, be of value. Like, go help your neighbor. Go be a good person. Go pour into your community. Go, you know, do something for someone else and tell me you don't feel better about yourself. Like, we're created to provide value for other people and to see the other people succeed. And so knowing that just makes my life personally so much better, because I know that every time I take an action, every time I take a risk, every time I try something, I'm not afraid of failing, because I know that those are the people and that's the life that I want to be, and that's the life I want to have, is one of, I'm not afraid to risk and try. I remember hearing this thing where they said, you know, I'm going to live safely so that I can safely roll into my grave. It's like, that's not a life I want to live. I want to live a life that's wide open of, you know, when I'm in my, you know, 100th birthday and I'm on my deathbed and my kids come in to see me, my 10 kids come in to see me, that I am so proud of the life that I've lived and the legacy I've left for my kids. Because when you go through hard things, I think even, especially when you're younger, is that it shapes, it's a huge part of what shapes you for who you are and your tolerance level for hard things. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful I have a tolerance for hard things, that I'm not a victim. It's not everyone else's fault. I'm willing to dig deep and see, how can I change this? How can I shift this and be a better person? So we got married, we had Bridge, and then we got pregnant with Dolly Lynn, who's her own thing. She's hilarious and special and a lot of work. And so right now she's 2 and Bridge is 4. And then he got a vasectomy. Everything was great. And then the vasectomy didn't work. And we have Truett Bond. So now we're officially done for sure. Having kids. We have 10 kids, all the way from Nolan, Emmy, Wyatt, Dawson, Rellin, Ava, Gage, Bridge, Dolly Lynn, and Truett Langford. And we're doing it. We're doing big family life, doing the things, and I would not be who I am without having what Plexus provided for me, the vehicle that it has been to get me here. Not just financially, because obviously the heart surgeon salary is amazing. Obviously, getting to experience that is incredible. But who I've become, someone who's lived through tough stuff, but didn't give up in the tough stuff. It's like, it's Rocky. And I think that bringing all this all back to Rocky is that what inspires me about Rocky is that he was, let's just say, normal, a basic, simple guy who had this dream and then got the opportunity. And here's the thing. Opportunity comes knocking for us all. It's whether we say yes and we're prepared, or we say no and we're scared. And he said yes. And he trained. He got prepared. He trained. He did the hard things. He drank egg yolks. He ran the steps of Philadelphia. I was on these steps, my friends. He ran the steps. He did the hard things to do the opportunity. He didn't know he was going to win. I mean, and I know it's fictional, but I'm just saying, it's like that underdog. Why do we love it so much? We love it so much because we all know deep down the true sacrifice it takes. It takes sacrificing what you want in the here and now for what you actually want in the future. It takes a sacrifice of tolerance of boring, monotonous repetition. It takes tolerance of hard things, of being able to do it when you don't feel like it. Do it when it's icy. Do it when it's snowing, raining, sunshine. Friend asks you out to lunch. You could coach basketball. You could volunteer over here. It takes sacrifice to build a massive life. It just does. And I think we all know that. And that's why that underdog story is so special, is because when you know that it took extra work and they did it, it's that much more victorious. It's that much more victorious. And I think that that's just the most amazing thing about this journey, is that the money is great. The trips have been phenomenal. The friends I've met have been absolute game changers. But who I've become in that process is literally everything to me. It's everything. Like I know I could go accomplish anything that I want to. And so remember that the hard things actually come for us to show, like, how bad do you want it? Are you willing to stick around even when everybody in the hometown is the best player and they're here and they're all expecting to be the best player? Am I willing to tough it out and be there? And let me finish it with that story that I never finished, is that he ends up with the D1 scholarship to that school. He toughed it out. He chose to grow instead of giving into ego and being like bowing out, watching TV, quitting the team. He chose to grow. He chose to stick it out and be like, I may not be the smartest here. I may not be the toughest. I may not be the strongest, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to grow. Nothing beats that attitude. Nothing. And if you have that attitude, you can build the life of your dreams, and you can use the vehicle of Plexus to do that if you just choose. It's really just that simple. Thanks for coming to the talk of my life. Cheers. I'll do it this way, but then I got to drink from this side because